The millionaire's child kicked and punched every nanny, but kissed the black cleaner that single moment would unravel a truth Manhattan's high society never imagined. No, absolutely not. That woman cannot stay here. Eleanor Reed's voice sliced through the marble hall of the Upper East Side penthouse. She'll contaminate my grandson with God knows what. Naomi Brooks, 28, stood motionless in her blue cleaning uniform, gently rocking little Ethan Reed in her arms. The same child who had bitten a nanny, bloodied another, and sent 5 specialists running out in tears was now asleep on her chest, peaceful, tiny fists unclenched. Father, Grandma is right, Isabel Reed crossed her arms, diamonds glittering under the chandelier. We have standards. You can't let a cleaner hold Ethan, it's humiliating. The tension in Alexander Reed's penthouse felt suffocating. For a month, his life had been a parade of screams, firings, lawsuits, and broken nannies. His son, his only child, was out of control, and grief over his late wife had only sharpened Ethan's rage. And yet there stood Naomi, the night cleaner who'd been called in by accident during a daytime emergency. She cradled the impossible child as if he were born to rest in her arms. She must be using some shady trick, Eleanor muttered loudly. People like her always have questionable methods. Naomi felt every word like a blade, but her posture didn't bend. Raised in the Bronx by a nurse and a mechanic, she knew this venom well, the kind wrapped in concern, but dripping with prejudice. She simply met Alexander Reed's eyes. His expression was unreadable. I should go, Naomi said quietly, shifting to place Ethan in his crib. The baby burst into tears, clinging to her shirt, refusing to let her go. It was the first affection he had shown anyone in months. Incredible, murmured Dr. Samuel Levine, the family pediatrician. In 20 years, I've never seen a response like that. He recognizes her instantly. Recognizes what? Eleanor snapped. She's just a cleaner. But Naomi saw it in Dr. Levine's face. Respect and, more importantly, curiosity. He understood something the others didn't. Children don't fake instinct. They feel truth before adults allow themselves to see it. Mr. Reed, Naomi said calmly, let me stay with Ethan 1 hour. If he's fine, then maybe the issue isn't the nannies. Maybe it's the people choosing them. Silence, thick, paralyzing. Eleanor paled. Isabel's jaw dropped. Alexander Reed realized this was no ordinary woman. This was someone unafraid to confront a room full of billionaires. Naomi sat on the floor with Ethan, her presence steady, grounded, warm. Eleanor whispered sharply to Alexander, imagine what the neighbors will say, what the clubs will whisper. You can't let this situation continue. But the hour had already begun, an hour that would change every life in that room, and soon, every secret buried under the Reed family name. Naomi pretended she didn't hear Eleanor's words, but they cut like salt on an old wound. She had grown up knowing that her existence made certain people uncomfortable. Her mother, a night shift nurse, used to tell her, they'll try to convince you that you don't belong anywhere. Prove them wrong, and Naomi did. She had earned a full scholarship and a degree in child development, praised by wealthy parents who trusted her with their children, yet never with their friendship. When her mother fell ill and lost her insurance, Naomi took cleaning jobs at night to pay for insulin. She had sacrificed dreams, but she had never lowered her dignity. She must have given Ethan something, Isabel sneered, watching the calm toddler play. These people always have their own methods. Alexander felt his stomach knot. His son, who had been a storm of violence for months, was now laughing, quietly eating from Naomi's hand. The contrast was undeniable, but so was the pressure radiating from Eleanor and Isabel. We should run tests, Eleanor muttered, to make sure he hasn't been exposed to anything inappropriate. Naomi felt the anger tighten in her chest, but her face remained a mask of calm. She had survived bias in classrooms, daycares, interviews, hospitals, and neighborhoods. She wasn't about to explode in front of people waiting for her to fit their stereotype. Mr. Reed, she asked softly. Without pausing the game she was playing with Ethan, how many nannies have attempted to care for Ethan in recent months? Alexander hesitated, then exhaled. 15. All highly trained. And their background? Naomi pressed. He paused again. Eleanor and Isabel exchanged tense glances. They saw where this was going. Well, They were... Alexander stopped, cornered by the truth. All from your world, Naomi finished for him. Same race, same wealth, same social bubble. She rose to her feet with Ethan in her arms. Yet this child rejected every one of them, but not me. It's almost as if an 18-month-old can feel authenticity over performance, don't you think? Silence fell like a hammer. Isabel looked stunned. Eleanor flushed with outrage. Dr. Levine stared at Naomi with something new in his eyes. Respect. How dare you? Eleanor began. But Alexander's phone rang. He stepped out to take the call, leaving Naomi alone with the two women. Eleanor struck immediately. Listen to me, she hissed. I know exactly what you're doing. Your type always sees a wealthy family and tries to climb. My type, Naomi repeated, her tone even, dangerously even. Manipulative. Calculating, Isabel added, probably planning to seduce Alexander for an easy life. Naomi gave a slow smile. Cold, knowing, tired. You are correct about one thing, she replied. I am ambitious, but not in the small, ugly way you imagine. At that moment, Alexander re-entered. Eleanor instantly changed tone. We were just getting to know our guest, she lied sweetly. Naomi didn't flinch. She looked straight at Alexander. Mr. Reed, she said, Ethan just fell asleep in my arms. Dr. Levine said it hasn't happened in weeks. May I offer a suggestion? Alexander nodded, intrigued. Naomi's voice remained steady. Hire me as Ethan's temporary nanny. 1 week. If he doesn't improve, I'll walk away without a word. But if he does, she let her eyes lock onto Eleanor's. Then perhaps the real question is why 15 trained professionals failed, and a so-called cleaning lady succeeded. The challenge was bold, precise, and impossible for Eleanor to dismiss. Eleanor's lips tightened. Isabel shifted uncomfortably, realizing they were losing control. Dr. Samuel Levine finally stepped in. Mr. Reed, medically speaking, Ethan's well-being is the priority. And I have never seen such a rapid, positive response. Not once. Alexander looked at his son, still asleep in Naomi's arms, then at the two women who suddenly seemed more afraid than angry. For the first time in months, he felt something new. Hope. 1 week, Alexander said. But on my terms. Eleanor and Isabel exchanged a silent, panicked look. They had no idea that Naomi had already spent 4 months watching this family from the shadows. Their habits, their tempers, their hierarchy, their secrets. She understood one thing clearly. The Reed fortune had bought everything except emotional sanity. The first week, a war with Smiles Naomi's trial week, became a subtle battleground. Psychological warfare wrapped in etiquette. Eleanor and Isabel attacked her through small, deliberate humiliations. Oh dear, did no one tell you Ethan is allergic to peanuts? Isabel cooed on the 3rd day, just after Naomi had plated a snack. Thank goodness I caught it. Imagine the tragedy. Naomi calmly wiped the table. How lucky. I'll note it down, though, according to the medical chart on the refrigerator. She glanced at Isabel. He's only allergic to seafood. Perhaps I misread it. Silence. Heavy. Exposed. Isabel hadn't expected Naomi to read, analyze, or think. Certainly not to check medical documentation. But Naomi had been studying them all along. In 4 months. She had learned. Eleanor hid antidepressants from her son. Isabel was drowning in gambling debt. Alexander didn't truly run his company. Eleanor did. Through a 40% trust she weaponized. And most importantly, they planned to mold Ethan into an heir, not a child. They needed Ethan obedient, isolated, and controlled. Naomi's existence threatened their entire blueprint. The dinner trap Dr. Levine called. Eleanor announced at dinner, feigning concern. He wants to discuss certain protocols for traumatized children. Traumatized? Alexander frowned. He's doing better than ever. Well, you know, Isabel added sweetly. Children can form unhealthy dependencies on unconventional caregivers. Naomi kept chopping vegetables, but her instincts sharpened. She knew Dr. Levine well enough to recognize someone was lying on his behalf. She responded without raising her voice. Mr. Reed, for clarity, would you mind if we record the conversation with Dr. Levine? That way the protocols are documented properly for Ethan's medical file. Eleanor paled. Record? There's no need for that, she snapped. Too fast, too defensive. And in that instant, Alexander noticed it, the crack in the facade. Actually, it's an excellent idea, Alexander replied, cutting through Eleanor's objections. If Ethan's health is involved, everything should be documented. Eleanor froze. Isabel's smile twitched. Naomi simply nodded and walked away, because she already knew. The moment sunlight touches manipulation, it dies. That night, when the penthouse finally went silent, Naomi slipped into the laundry room and dialed a number she had memorized years ago. Dr. Hayes, this is Naomi Brooks, your former student. Dr. Malcolm Hayes, her old professor, now one of the most respected child custody consultants in New York courts, answered with warmth. Naomi, it's been a long time. I hear you're working with children again. It's more complicated than that, she replied. A wealthy family is trying to undermine me, and I fear they're willing to weaponize an infant to do it. Her voice didn't shake, but her truth was heavy. For 40 minutes, she laid everything bare. Isabel's fake allergy trap, Eleanor's poison dressed as concern, their sudden obsession with special protocols, their calculated attempt to paint her as unfit or dangerous. Dr. Hayes listened without a single interruption. Naomi, this is serious, he finally said. Their behavior matches a classic pattern. Create doubt, manufacture a crisis, then blame the outsider. They're not just targeting you. They may be setting up the groundwork to challenge Alexander's parental judgment. Naomi's heart went cold. How? If they can claim Alexander knowingly hired someone unqualified or unstable, they can question his fitness as a parent. A grandmother with money and influence can use that in court. She inhaled slowly. Then I need to document everything, and I need an independent evaluation of Ethan fast. I'll be there tomorrow, he said. Then after a pause, Naomi, whether you like it or not, you're fighting for this child's future. The next morning, Dr. Samuel Levine arrived for the protocol meeting. Eleanor and Isabel flanked him like silent prosecutors. Alexander was at work, and Naomi had taken Ethan out for a walk earlier on purpose. She wanted this room to expose itself. Miss Brooks, Dr. Levine began awkwardly, I've received some concerns about non-traditional methods being used with Ethan. Naomi calmly tapped her phone, starting the recorder. What kind of concerns, doctor? Eleanor pounced first. We believe Ethan has formed an obsessive attachment. Could this be emotional manipulation on her part? Dr. Levine blinked. Manipulation? Mrs. Reed, Ethan is finally forming a secure attachment. That is the healthiest development we could hope for. Isabel tried a different weapon. But doctor, she said softly, people from her background often use methods we don't understand. Don't you think that should be investigated? Dr. Levine's brows narrowed. His voice cooled. Ms. Reed, would you care to specify what methods you are implying? Violence, a long damning silence. Eleanor and Isabel, for the first time, had no elegant lie ready. Because prejudice, when forced into daylight, always sounds as ugly as it truly is. Naomi didn't smile. She didn't need to. The recorder was already capturing every word, and now the game had shifted, from accusation to evidence. Isabel and Eleanor exchanged a quick, nervous glance. They both realized they had shown their hand too openly. Eleanor tried to recover her composure. We only want to ensure Ethan receives care that reflects his social standing, she said, choosing her words carefully. Dr. Samuel Levine leaned back in his chair, expression sharpening. In that moment, he finally saw the truth beneath the politeness. This was not about Ethan's health. It was about status, control, and territory. In 18 years of practice, he said calmly, I have rarely seen a traumatized toddler form such a healthy, secure attachment. Naomi's presence has produced measurable progress in Ethan's behavior and emotional stability. If either of you has specific, documented concerns about his welfare, you may present them in writing. Otherwise, I will be recommending that Naomi remain his primary caregiver. Eleanor's face reddened. Doctor, you don't understand the societal context. Oh, I understand it perfectly, he interrupted. And I will also be recording my recommendation in Ethan's official medical file. The room fell silent. Naomi said nothing. She simply lifted Ethan into her arms, calm and composed, though inside she felt it clearly. Round 1. She had won. That night, as Ethan slept peacefully, Naomi checked her phone. A message from Dr. Samuel Levine's contact, Professor Reeves, appeared on her screen. "I've arrived in New York. I uncovered something about the Reed family. You need to see it. It changes everything." For the first time in weeks, Naomi allowed herself a small, private smile. 4 months in this mansion, and she had gathered more than bedtime routines and therapy notes. She had gathered evidence. The following afternoon, Naomi met Professor Reeves in a quiet Brooklyn cafe. He slid a thick folder toward her. Bank records, investigator logs, printed emails, and photographs. "What I found goes far beyond prejudice," he said. "This is strategy." Inside the documents was a coordinated plan. Eleanor had hired private investigators to track Alexander's parenting decisions. Isabel was working with lawyers to seize control of Ethan's future trust together. They were building a case to declare Alexander unstable and unfit. And the motive became clear: money and control. Isabel's secret gambling debts were buried in the paperwork, nearly $200,000 stolen from family accounts, and over $500,000 owed to underground lenders. If she lost access to Reed family wealth, she would lose everything, including her freedom. "That's why they need you gone," Professor Reeves said. "If Ethan keeps improving with you, Alexander will trust himself again. And if Alexander regains confidence, their legal strategy collapses. Everything clicked into place for Naomi. It was never about her being unqualified. It was never about Ethan's safety. It was about removing witnesses and controlling a widower through his child. And tomorrow, the professor continued, they planned to corner Alexander in a family intervention and convince him to surrender decision-making authority. Naomi stayed up until dawn, not cleaning, not preparing bottles, but building her own arsenal. Recordings, photos, notes, medical observations, time-stamped incidents. Eleanor's hypocrisy, including the antidepressants she hid while shaming others for emotional weakness. This was no longer defense. This was strategy. The silent war in the Reed household had officially begun. Recordings, emails, bank statements, phone logs. 4 months of silent observation had become ammunition, undeniable proof that Isabel and Eleanor had lied, manipulated and deliberately sabotaged Ethan's progress with every nanny before Naomi. The next morning, Dr. Samuel Levine called Naomi. "You need to attend the family meeting today," he said. "Why?" Naomi asked. "Because as Ethan's physician, I'm legally entitled to be present when his well-being is discussed. And today, Eleanor and Isabel will learn they underestimated the wrong woman." The meeting was set for 3 p.m. inside the Reed family's law firm. Alexander arrived tense, confused by why his mother had insisted on something so formal. Minutes later, Eleanor and Isabel entered, smiling, confident and carrying neatly tabbed binders. Convinced that today would be Naomi's final day in the Reed household, Eleanor began in her polished, sugary tone. "Alexander, we are deeply concerned about the decisions you've been making regarding Ethan's care." Isabel opened her binder with theatrical precision. "We've brought in Dr. Harold Grant, a distinguished child psychologist. He has reviewed the situation and has recommendations we believe are necessary." Dr. Grant, a man in his 60s with gold-rimmed glasses, cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, based on the reports your family provided, Ethan is forming inappropriate attachments that could hinder his social development." Alexander frowned. "Inappropriate attachments to whom?" Dr. Grant avoided eye contact. "To individuals who do not share the family's cultural and social values. I recommend replacing the current caregiver immediately and evaluating your decision-making capacity as a single parent." A tense silence spread across the room. Then a knock. The door opened. Dr. Levine stepped in, followed by Professor James Cole. And to Eleanor and Isabel's shock, Naomi, Dr. Levine's voice was ice. "Before you make a catastrophic mistake, I need to speak as Ethan's attending physician." Eleanor's face tightened. "What is the meaning of this?" Naomi set down a thick folder, twice the size of Isabel's. "It means that for 4 months, I gathered enough evidence to destroy you both legally, socially, and financially. Professor Cole introduced himself calmly. Professor James Cole, consultant for the New York Family Court. After reviewing Ms. Brooks's documentation, I can confirm we are dealing with manipulation, fraud, and intentional sabotage. Isabel's confidence shattered. Evidence? What evidence? Naomi opened the folder. Let's start with your emails, Eleanor. Specifically, the ones where you attempted to bribe Dr. Grant in exchange for a falsified psychological report. Dr. Grant turned red. This is being misinterpreted. No, Professor Cole interrupted. We have your phone recordings discussing altered reports in exchange for donations to your clinic. Eleanor began to stand, furious, but Naomi continued without flinching. And you, Isabel, you should really be more careful with financial paperwork. You left bank records on the desk during my overnight cleaning shifts. Alexander turned to his sister-in-law, stunned. Isabel, what did you do? Naomi slid multiple documents forward, loans totaling $80,000, using Ethan's name as collateral, unauthorized transfers from family accounts, and, she paused, photographs of you entering illegal gambling dens in Queens. The room froze. Isabel turned ghost white. Eleanor trembled. Dr. Grant silently reached for the door, desperate to escape, but Naomi wasn't finished. And the recordings, she continued. The two of you planning to sabotage every nanny, including your attempt, Isabel, to plant cocaine in my purse last week. Alexander erupted. Cocaine? Are you insane? Professor Cole placed a digital recorder on the table. Mr. Reed, would you like to hear how they plotted against you, your son, and Ms. Brooks? For 20 minutes the room was filled with Eleanor and Isabel's own voices, mocking Alexander, demeaning Naomi, scheming, bribing, and openly plotting to maintain control of Ethan for inheritance leverage. Alexander lowered his head into his hands. I trusted you. Eleanor made one final attempt. David, she manipulated us. This woman orchestrated everything. Naomi stood, calm and surgical. Yes, I planned it, but not to harm you. To protect Ethan from you. She turned to Alexander. For months I watched them sabotage every healthy bond Ethan tried to form. Not because he was troubled, but because love threatened their control. Dr. Levine spoke next. Medically, Naomi is right. Ethan was never disordered. He was reacting to the toxicity around him. Professor Cole placed one final document on the table. Legally, your actions amount to embezzlement, fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to endanger a child. Isabel collapsed, sobbing. Eleanor, cornered and shaking, spat her final venom. You think you've won. A girl from nothing and some professor? You'll never beat the New York elite. Naomi pulled out her phone. Eleanor, this entire meeting has been streamed live. 50,000 viewers. Journalists included. Eleanor froze. You didn't. I did. And the most liked comment says, rich racists finally exposed. Phones buzzed. Alerts exploded. The scandal ignited online in real time. By nightfall, Eleanor Reed and Isabel Reed were national symbols of corruption and elitism. Alexander looked at Naomi, stunned. You collected all of this. To protect me? To protect Ethan, she corrected. Children deserve truth, not cages built from family pride. Eleanor and Isabel left the room to paparazzi flashes, their dynasty burning behind them. Naomi remained steady. She had crushed them with nothing but truth and intelligence. But her plan wasn't, for she still had one final move, one that would change not just a household, but the system that allowed families like the Reeds to abuse power for generations. 6 months later, Eleanor Reed socially erased. Isabel Reed, bankrupt, disgraced, under house arrest. Alexander promoted Naomi to director of Ethan's development, with a 6-figure salary and profit shares. Naomi built a national scholarship program for single mothers. Ethan, now 2.5, spoke clearly, emotionally stable and intellectually thriving. Dr. Levine became her medical advisor. Professor Cole became director of diversity in Alexander's corporation. Eleanor watched from exile as the woman she tried to destroy became a respected public voice and a force for systemic change. Naomi had proven the point. Intelligence dismantles arrogance. Dignity outlives privilege, and Ethan Reed grew up in a home finally free from manipulation.